Brittney Bills has been on the Planning Commission for how long?
3 years.
3 years.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I think I know most of you. I'm Brittney Bills. Like he said, I've lived in Highland for almost 12 years now. I live up in Viewpoint. I have a master's degree in public policy analysis, and I have a bachelor's degree in political science. I teach at a high school down the road here, and I teach government there. I also teach at UVU sometimes, and I'm teaching a few classes right now at Salt Lake Community College, also government classes. Probably the reason I think I'm best qualified, though, for City Council is because I am raising my own 5 children here in Highland. I think that's my very best qualification. I really want this place to be a place where I want to raise my 5 kids. This is where we're planning on being forever. And so I have a vested interest in making sure it's the kind of city that I want my family to be in. So 5 kids. My oldest is 19. He is deserting me to go on a mission in 3 weeks. He's going to Russia. I assume he'll come back. I think my dad will be disappointed if he doesn't serve part of his time in jail. I think my dad is legitimately hoping that that's a thing. Me, not so much. And then my youngest is 7, and the rest are all in between there. So they are the reason that I do this. Somebody asked me earlier if my husband was on board with this. And I said he is, but he did make me find something else I was doing with my time that I said I would give up in order to do this so that I have time with my family as well. So I have a couple other obligations that I'm giving up in order to do this so that I still have time with my family as well. So the other reason I'm doing this is because I think that local government matters. So we spend a lot of time talking about what's happening in Washington, D.C. I think we spend so much time looking at what President Trump is doing and complaining about Congress and talking about healthcare and immigration, and those things all matter. And I call my senator as often as the next guy. I'm always having my high school kids call Senator Lee because they think it's really funny that somebody actually answers the phone. But I think that it is so important to know that local government is where you can really make a difference. If you look at what impacts your life every day, it's local government. It's what's happening here in our city, in our schools. It's what's happening here. This is where I can have the greatest impact. So that is why I'm doing this. And I also think it's important for people to realize that the same constitutional principles that we apply to our federal government, we can apply them locally as well. And so I want to remember that. So that's why I'm doing this. I think that local government matters. It's important to me. I want to make a difference. I want Highland to be the place that I can raise my family for the next however long it takes.
Get rid of them as fast as you can.
What? I've heard they come back.
They do. It's like boomerang.
She's heard that story.
Hit you in the back of the head when you're not looking.
But you know what? As I'm thinking about I'm not going to cry because that would be counterproductive here. But the more I think about sending my kid out on a mission, the more I just want him to come back. So it seems like that boomerang effect, bring it on. I'm already ready for the part where he comes back. Sign me up for that part.
When he comes back with 4 kids.
Right? I don't know, as long as he comes back. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Or a wife.
I don't know about that part. Yeah. So anyway, that's me. That's why I'm here. So I have a whole bunch of different soapbox issues I can talk about if nobody has any specific questions. But what can?
Oh, we've got questions.
Oh, super. Yeah.
Can you start?
Yeah. Throw them at me.
We were just talking with Doug about the zoning and the fact that our city plan hasn't been looked at for over a decade.
Yeah.
So when that happens, hopefully this next year, maybe, I don't know, what would you like to see happen to that?
So I like our city plan. I like what it is, and I'm happy with the way it is. I think that there's no need to change it unless we see a compelling reason to change it that is in the interest of Highland residents and not developers. So I guess I'm kind of the philosophy of let's leave it how it is unless somebody can show me why it's broken. Let's keep it how it is and only make changes if we can show that they're really valuable for Highland residents, not for outside reasons.
So money's not going to make you change the plan so they can have high density housing?
No. Well, no. So 2 weeks ago in Planning Commission, we had a vote on Apple Creek, which for those of you who aren't familiar with that was an kind of a high density apartment complex that they wanted to build here in the city center. So 100 something apartments, 10,000 square feet of commercial space. The commercial space was space that could have been then turned into 20 apartments if it was not rented out for, I don't remember what the time frame was, 18 months. Could have been changed into more residential. And I was one of 2 planning commission members who voted against that, which I'll tell you what, they started this new way of voting in planning commission just last month. It used to be where they would go down the line and you would all vote, so you could kind of see what everyone else was doing and you would hope you were at the end and then you would have a good idea. They started this new thing where you just vote and then they show it at the end and you don't know what anyone else is doing. And initially when they put the vote up and I saw that there were only 2 of us who had voted against, and so it passed planning commission, initially my reaction was, wait a minute, like, did I miss something? And the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what? No, I didn't, because I really think that was the right thing for Highland residents. And it was it was kind of a good lesson for me to just go home and think about it and think, why did I make that decision? And then I thought, the reason I made that decision is because I think it's really important to have a fundamental set of principles that you want to use when you make decisions. And then if you always refer back to those principles as you make decisions, then your decision is always right because you can be consistent. And I mean, I know I will make decisions. Like, I've tried to be really consistent in my parenting, and my children will tell you I've made plenty of mistakes over the years, right? But I think if you have a fundamental set of criteria that you want to use when you make decisions, then I think it allows you to do the right thing. So that's what I did with that decision. I think it was the right thing because I don't think it was the right plan for Highland. I think it was too high density. I think the builder was asking for too many exceptions for what he wanted to do. I think that nobody was looking forward enough at the traffic problems that it was going to create. And I don't think we need to be in a hurry. I think we don't have a lot of developable space here in Highland, and I think we have the right and the power to take our time and wait until a project comes along that we think this feels right and this is the right fit for us. And that wasn't it, in my opinion.
I like that.
You know, the thing that concerns me, you say don't change it, but I think I went to one of the original city planning things back 20 odd years ago. It was a 3-day affair, and as I look back on it and what I remember there was going to be a swimming pool up here and you know, things that were kind of family oriented instead of things that are strictly for the kids. The kids have everything. I mean, we make sure they have everything. And what we've gotten ourselves into, we're not going to be a community because we're leaving out the seniors and we're leaving out the new young kids who want to start out here. And you can't have a really functionally healthy city unless you've got all aspects of it, unless you just want a center for just those people.
So, and I think that's really important. And last week, you were at the meeting last week where we had some representatives from the state come. And I love it when they do this, right? So we get all up in arms because the federal government tells the state government what to do, and we're like, don't do that. Don't tell us what to do from the state level. And then the state turns around and they tell the city government what to do all the time. And that's what happened last week. The state came and said that they would like every city with a population of over 5,000 people to create a moderate income housing plan. So they gave us a list of 23 choices. And out of all the 23, I like number 23 the best, because number 23 was this option to create your own idea. And I won't tell you what all my ideas were for number 23, which was create your own idea, but I had some good ideas for number 23. And what they asked us to do was to choose 3 of those ideas and then study them for a year. And there was no funding attached, of course, to this mandate, but there are consequences if we don't follow the mandate, right? And the consequences are transportation funding. And so for a year, we have to choose 3 of these ideas and then study them. And kind of the 3 that Highland has chosen to study are 3 that we're doing in a way right now. One of which is this higher density housing that we're taking care of by the Boyer property. So between the high school and the developmental center. And the second one is looking at what we're going to do with our rental properties. People who have some kind of whether it be a basement or some kind of a detached unit that they're renting. And the third one, I think, kind of speaks to what you're talking about, which is housing for retirees. And I think also included in that could be housing for young families, housing for people who would like to make their home here and maybe can't quite yet. But I think that when the state gives us something like that, we have to make it work for Highland. I think affordable housing or moderate income housing is very different in Highland than it is in American Fork or in Lehigh or somewhere that's close to mass transit, that has lots of employment centers. And I think that when they give us a mandate like that, we have to be really careful and look at who we're going to use a program like that to benefit, because we have to do it, right? I mean, it's a mandate from the state, and you can say, well, we'll just not take the money. But realistically, that's not an option. So then I think we have to think about how can we use this program to best benefit Highland? And I think something like that, how can we make senior housing affordable and manageable and in a way that benefits us all? Because that benefits everybody, right? To have
eventually we're all going to be there.
Well, and I don't even think it's that eventually we're all going to be there. I would say that it's also that it brings something to our community to have a diversity of ages. And the whole reason my family lived in Portland for 10 years before we came back here, and 100% of the reason that we came back here was to be close to my parents, because I think there's something about those intergenerational relationships that is, it just, to me, it's just critical. That's why you guys see, like, everybody laughs at me because everywhere I go, I bring bread with me, because that's what I do. I bake. When I'm stressed, I bake bread, because it's what I learned from my grandma that I do. This is what she did, and that's what I grew up doing, that I learned from my grandma. And I know it's like silly maybe, but I think that those things that we learn, that's how you build a community. And I think so, not just because I'm going to be in that situation someday, but also because I think there's a lot of value added to having that diversity in the community. I like having those people as my neighbors. I like being able to, my little 7-year-old, her best friend in my neighborhood, his name is Coach, and he's 82. He used to be the head basketball coach at Rick's College. And she spends like literally 2 or 3 afternoons a week down at his house playing with him. He comes to every one of her birthday parties, and it's the sweetest relationship that she has. So, I mean, I just think it's important for a lot of reasons. He gives her popsicles. I mean, let's be fair. Let's be fair, that's part of it, even in the winter.
I keep them in my freezer.
Yeah, he buys her off a little bit, but it's a really sweet little friendship.
Remind me of the third reason: Boyer project and basement apartment. What was the third?
Senior housing.
Oh, okay. And That comes out of thin air, right?
No, there is, which property is it that we're already addressing that with?
I mean, we have a couple already senior housing, but over at Boyer they'll be putting some also.
We're using that for a variety of 5 minutes. Okay. What else can we talk about?
Well, let me just ask you a question. The city council passed an ordinance recently about water conservation, about giving warnings and then fines. And how many warnings and fines have been given out to our city council member here? Has it been a single one?
Any fines
Any?
of overwatering, unless I'm not aware of any, but it's usually if it's a gross. We've had some who have illegal connections that we're actually doing some legal things on.
Okay, but nobody for overwatering.
Not that I'm aware of.
So we have a finite amount of water. We keep putting in new houses. So how are you thinking about addressing the water issue in the future? We keep adding people, and historically our water is actually going down, and it's the infrastructure is very old. So we're going to get you to finish out on water issues.
Man, I told you coming in that like water is intimidating to me. This is what I know about water. So we had a presentation about water the other day, and what I have learned about water is that there is so much to learn about water. That is what I've learned about water. Now, I was lucky enough to get to go on a water tour, and I learned about the 8 wells in Highland, and I learned that the state has this program, and you had talked to me about water meters, and I learned that the state actually is going to require that. And that is going to be another unfunded mandate, by the way, that the state is going to require us to install water meters on every home in the next, they didn't give us a deadline.
That's for secondary water.
So this is what I know about water. I don't know enough about water to have an answer to that question, but I have started to do my research about water. So I have no answers. But I have talked to Mayor Thompson. I've gone on a water tour with him, and I know that it's an issue. What?
Did you take your lunch?
No.
No,
You were probably hungry then.
They started making excuses 15 minutes out because you are the most
That is
boring
not.
person
Hey,
I've
we
ever
were.
heard.
No, it wasn't. That was like an hour and a half, and I asked if I could go back. I've already asked for round 2 of the water tour.
Yeah.
I had no idea, but I thought, and am I mistaken that in my water tour I learned that you're kind of supposed to bring your own water with you when you come. It's like a bring your own water
And I
situation.
think that's one of the catching points for the city, is they had no water.
Yeah.
They simply said, if you want to develop, you bring water.
Right.
If you want to hook
See,
up
I
to this
learned
new
that.
system that we're going to build, bring us water. And that was reasonable because most people got water with their property if they were smart enough to make sure they got that. But the reality of it is now, even if meters are installed, we don't have any method of saying if you pay more, you can have more. They can only use the water they committed to their property. And that's going to be the next headache, because I know we'll have city officials that'll say, well, why can't we sell some of that water? Well, who does the water or the money from the water go to if someone committed 3 acre feet, they don't use all of it, and somebody else uses it? It was still their resource that they brought tied to their property. It's complicated in respect to how you deal with that.
You guys, the borough has a bring water shares the city to hook in. So he's trying to talk to all of, how many shares do you have to give the city to hook on?
Well, they want 31.
31 shares at $7,500 each.
Even just
It's
learning.
more valuable than oil.
Even just learning how it's measured and how it's distributed, to go up there to the mouth of the canyon and realize that it's diverted, one way to Lehigh and the other way to American Fork, but we're right there. Like, why isn't it all ours? You know what I mean? Like, surprisingly.
Is built, it is not about the recreational things. It is about water. They're doing storage of water.
I had no idea. I was telling Mayor Thompson that when we'd go down to my grandma's to help her and my grandma who I bake bread with to water her ditch, you turned the wheel, and for 2 hours the water flowed into her field, and then you would turn the wheel off, and then you were done. And so this has been really surprising to me how complicated it is, and I am fairly convinced that there is a steep learning curve. but I am convinced that I am smart enough to figure it out. So that's what I can say to that.
You're going to.
I'll figure it out.
Your time is up, but we'll keep going.